Hi, this is Amanda Shires. You're listening to Walking the Floor.
I'm walking the floor over you.
Walking the floor.
I'm walking the floor. Walking the floor over you.
Hola, senors and senoritas, and welcome to another edition of Walking the Floor with me, Chris Shiflett. It's a little gray here in LA today, but that ain't gonna get me down. Hopefully the sun is shining bright wherever you are. And you may remember I told you last week that I've got some shows coming up, and they continue to grow, and I've got some info for you. That's right. I'm kicking off my world tour for my new record that isn't out until April, right here in Los Angeles in November. It's a world tour of 2 cities. We've got both LA and San Diego. First up, I'm going to be playing at Mollusk Surf Shop over in Silver Lake. Not the one in Venice, not the one in San Francisco, but the one in Silver Lake, which I haven't been to, but I've been to the other 2, and those are great surf shops. So let's see here. On the 12th of November, I'll be hitting the stage at 8 p.m., and there are a couple other people playing, and I'm totally forgetting their names, and that's super lame of me, but I will figure that out, and I'll get that info for you next week. So I'm just going to sort of dribble the info out here. Then, November 15th, we're at the Belly Up down in wherever that is, Encinitas, somewhere down south. That's for the Rob Machado Foundation. It's the Rob Machado Foundation at the Belly Up. I'm going to be on at like 8:45. There's, I think Pepper is playing acoustic. They're headlining. Then there's also Tristan Prettyman, and Iron, Sage, and Wood are opening, and then I think I'm up right after them. Then let's not forget, I'm opening 2 shows for X, one at the Casbah down in San Diego on December 18th, and one at the Roxy up here in LA on New Year's Eve. So there you go. And I think I'm on around like 8 or 9. I think I'm the only support. So just get there when doors open, and we'll do that. And there's possibly one, it's not confirmed yet, but there might be one on November 13th locally here in LA that I might be playing. So I'll confirm that first and then announce it. And that'll be really fun. Most of those gigs are going to be just me playing acoustic, but the X shows are me playing with a full band. So that'll be really like the live premiere of the record. Okay, let's pay some bills. You know, the other day, I needed a new capo. So I went over to Zounds.com, ordered it up, got a strap while I was there, and then set up a 12-month payment plan. Now, after putting down my first payment, Zounds.com shipped my gear right to me. Isn't that great? Okay, I made that whole thing up, but you don't have to. So get over to Zounds.com right now and get your gear. And if you find a better price somewhere else, Zounds will beat it. I don't know how they're going to beat it, but that's what they told me to say. So there you go. Let's go to Nashville. Okay, now towards the end of my time recording out in Nashville this past summer, I managed to connect with singer-songwriter Amanda Shires, who was getting ready to release her latest record, My Piece of Land, which she wrote and recorded about a year ago while she was pregnant. Now, you know, I love talking to other musicians about parenting, so I hope we don't bore you guys too much with that, but it was fun. Amanda hails from the Lone Star State and was even a member of the legendary Texas Playboys when she was first starting out. She's come a long way since then, and is several albums into her career now, not counting her early instrumental fiddle ones, of course, because I promised I wouldn't mention those or play them. We talked about everything from how to balance parenthood with touring, to Buddy Holly, to how showing up with gear that works is oftentimes all you need to land a gig. This is Amanda Shires on Walking the Floor. All right, do you want to start on the sort of like, this is your life section of the interview, or do you want to jump right into your new record, which I'm guessing would probably be more fun for you?
All of it's gonna be great.
All righty. Well,
I like just talking about your record.
Yeah, we could compare notes on working with Dave Cobb.
Exactly.
I guess, yeah, why don't we talk about that? You know?
Okay.
So you just made a new record.
I did.
Recently. It's
Well,
coming out in September,
Yep.
right?
I made
My
it
Piece of
last
Land.
year. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, this time last year.
Right.
Exactly this time
Oh,
last
for real?
year. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
And well, tell me about it. Like, what
This
what do
time-
you want the fans to know about your new record?
That it's awesome.
Of course.
No.
It is awesome. You know, I just got it yesterday.
I don't really
Donica
know if
sent
it's
it to
awesome,
me.
but
It is awesome. Yeah, it's a beautiful record.
Oh, thank
I mean,
you.
to me, I listen to it. I don't know exactly what your influences are, and we can get into that. But I hear, like, it just reminds me of, like, West Coast, like, Wide Open Spaces, Everly Brothers, Buddy Holly. There's a lot of, like,
Sweet.
that stuff in there, you know?
That's cool. I like it when that happens. Yeah, I made it this time last year, and it was this hot and humid, and but I was 9 months pregnant. That's the only difference, and I was 60 pounds heavier.
Right.
And yeah, I'd been.
I mean, I imagine that's got to have, like, a pretty massive influence, because I read that, in your bio, that you had written a lot of, not just made the record, but written the record
Yeah.
when you were already, like, something like 7 months pregnant.
Yeah.
And I was trying to put that in context, like, if my wife wrote a record at 7 months, all the songs would be like, I fucking hate my husband, he's a son of a bitch, kill that motherfucker.
Well, I couldn't
and your
hate
record
him.
doesn't do that.
No. Well, I toured up until like 33 weeks. And the last out of town show I played was Willie's Picnic, and it was hot. And the airlines frown at you for being a pregnant person traveling, and then you got all these extra doctor's appointments you have to go to. So
Right.
I just went home and was there all by myself, and like the AC went out, and the hot water heater went out, and I had to live in a hotel for a little while, and I just started writing, and then
Were you starting from scratch, or these, like, songs that you just...
Yeah, all
worked up
except
then?
for one. I had one idea, that song "Harmless," and it was all the way written, and my computer had crashed and died, so I'd only remembered like part of it, so I had to finish writing that one. But yeah, I just started with 4 or 5 that I'd written, and then I called Dave and I said, "Can we record? I've already, like, the house is clean and the nursery's ready, and I don't have anything to do. I need to
Just
record."
sitting around being pregnant.
Yeah, sitting around being pregnant, playing music by myself. And he said yeah, and so then I finished writing and went in to record with him.
Had you made any records with him in the past, or is this the first one?
I'd only worked with him with Jason's records.
Right,
So
right.
I liked him as a producer. I mean, how could you not? And as a person.
Sure.
And I already had the, like, language for talking to him. Like, there wasn't, like, that self-conscious, like, surface stuff that you have to get through
Right.
before you can actually
Being
communicate.
polite.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
Where he actually knew what I meant when I said, that sounds too much like peanut butter and jelly. He would be like, okay, I get what you mean.
Right.
Or, you know.
Had you made records the way that he makes records before?
No. Never.
And can you talk about that process a little bit? Like,
Yeah.
and I say that having just gone through it myself, because I'm in the, wrapping up making a record here. And I had never made a record like that, the way that he listens to it right then and there, makes all these crazy arrangement decisions, and then you just kind of work it up and bang it out.
Yeah, I've never worked with somebody that was so quick with their instinct. Like
he seems
instinctively.
totally connected to his instinct.
Yeah, yes, and like he can get to the place that the headspace, the artistic headspace, for lack of a better word, like he's always in that space. It seems like even when you're talking to him about things that aren't music, it's just you get him back on track and on music, and he's like, anyway. So I brought the songs to him. He doesn't do demos, and we'd go in. And he'd say, "What song are we doing today?" And I'd be like, "I don't know." And I'd play one. He'd be like, "Let's do that one." And then as soon as you get done playing it, he has the ideas. Even if you don't know the song well, which you don't if you're doing it without demos, you haven't played it live or anything like that, or I didn't.
Yeah, sure.
And it was crazy. But I think it captures something doing it that way, that, like, almost the audience performance side, because the song's so new. It's like you have a small audience because you have Matt and Dave and then the band listening, so it takes your mind away from thinking about, I'm recording right now,
Right. It's funny. He told me to, that he doesn't like demos and don't make demos,
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
thing. But of course I did anyway.
He didn't listen to him.
Yeah. And so, we would listen to my demo and then he'd do exactly what you were talking about. And it almost felt to me and this was like a cool way to do it. Like I almost felt like I was trying to do a weird cover version of some song. You know what I mean? Like, the way you approach a cover, like, I can't just do a straight version of that. You know what I mean? He's throwing in different chords and changing the tempo and the groove and everything,
And then he's like, it really needs to not resolve here.
Right.
And you're trying to resolve it there.
Right.
And it's like, okay, we'll try it that way. And, 9 times out of 10, he's exactly right.
Right.
And then the one time it's just your own preference. Like, no, that sounds so dumb. Yeah.
It seems like listening to all your records, your music has evolved a lot over the years. It's like your new record seems, there's a common thread with your first record, but it's different. It's gone into some different places. I'm wondering, like, what influences are you drawing from now that maybe you weren't then?
Life, I think, when you're 21 and you're writing about love, it's a lot different than when you're 33 and writing about love. You've got a lot more of the infatuation and things that you don't think of. I don't know. You don't think about. It's like less high school.
Right.
You get the gruesome kind of, I don't know, other sides of love and loss, I guess. Life experience, I think, changes a lot. Yeah, because what do you have except for your own experiences to write about, unless you're telling somebody else's story?
Who played on your record? Who's on this new record? Like,
Dave,
do you have a band that you tour with that you always record with, or do you just kind of like, assemble people as you go?
When I moved here in 2009 to Nashville, I started playing with this guy, Paul Griffith. He plays the drums, and Paul Slivka, who plays the bass, and I always loved them. And I didn't really ever tour with them. But when I decided to make the record, I just said to Dave, I have these two guys that I really like to play with, because I played with them just in town. And he's like, bring them over. And so I did, and they're on it. But touring, I have a different group of people I go with. Yeah.
No, you don't take them out on the road.
Those two guys, no, they're too expensive.
It's funny you said that. I was thinking about that. Like, how am I ever going to do shows for this record I'm making? Because I'm never going to be able to afford, like Chris Powell and guys like that. You know what I mean?
Well, Jason says it doesn't have to sound the same live as it does in the studio,
sure.
But
and it won't.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I just am glad I got to work with people I got to work with. But,
right. Well, I love the album has such a sparse sound to it. It's not overloaded with millions and millions of tracks. I love that. It really lets your voice shine and let the song shine.
That's Dave. That's all Dave. Because if it wasn't for Dave, we'd all be turning our vocals down.
Sure.
He turns them up so loud.
Yeah. So if you made this album this time last year, how come it's taken a year to get it out?
Because 3 days after I made the record, I had a baby. So then there's all this stuff I didn't know you had to do. I had an idea. I knew that you had to breastfeed every 2 hours, and then it's very consuming. And, about, I guess it was 3 or 4 months ago, she started sleeping through the night, and then, I decided I could tour and put it out.
Right. And have you been taking, you take her out there on the road with you?
I take her.
Do you like traveling as a family, touring as a family?
I love that, but it's, when I, if I'm not playing my own shows, I play with Jason.
Sure.
So Jason's setup is, he has a bus and a family bus, so it's easy to travel like that.
Yeah.
But when I do my own solos shows, I'm still in a van. And adults shouldn't even travel for 8 to 10 hours a day in a van.
Sure.
We've got back problems from that, I think, are doing that so long. But so I couldn't imagine ever taking her in the van, just safety and then the discomfort. And
oh man, I remember when my kids were babies and still in car seats. My kids are all older than that now. They're all past that stage. And traveling with them, because we like to take the kids out as much as we can. And just freaking out about every rental car, and you call a car service and you're really specific. You have to have the safety thing
Yeah.
so I can click my car seat and
Exactly.
show up, and it wouldn't, and just having there's so much stress. In some ways, it's easier though. You'll find when your kids can't walk yet. They can't run away. The really hard time is when they're a toddler because they're crazy.
She's kind of about there right now. But
Right.
in Jason's setup, we set up for all that. So we just put the car seat in the bay, and then we have a car seat everywhere we go. But this fall, when I do like these 50 shows, and he's already touring on the road separately, she's going with him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's got to be fun for him.
He loves it.
Yeah.
He's done it a couple of times. But it'll be my first like super long stretch of time without being around her. I think at some point in October or November it'll be 3 weeks before I see her.
Yeah.
That's pretty scary.
That's a long time.
Yeah. But I think maybe she'll forgive me for it later when
Sure.
if I
Sure.
can get out of a van.
Yeah, it's interesting, I think about, from my own perspective, being a dad and being a busy musician that's touring a lot, I have to be away from my kids a lot.
But you probably have the luxury of having other like males or dads or somewhere in your life that are going through the same thing.
Sure, everybody in my
Yeah.
band going
Yeah.
through the exact
Oh,
same thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't really have that.
Yeah.
But I guess I could just vent about it on Twitter or something.
Right. Well, that'll be your next album.
It'll be so sad.
No, but what I was gonna say was it's obviously it's challenging for my wife, it's challenging for my kids, it's challenging for me. We all have
Yeah.
our own sort of struggles within that. But in your situation, you both of you are busy musicians with, for lack of a better word, careers.
Yeah.
How do you balance that and make it work?
We've got it figured out. Well, we had it figured out, and before we had Mercy, I would tour, and if he wasn't touring, he'd come play with me and drive the van around. And then if I wasn't
him to work.
playing, I would go with him and play with him. I'm looking forward to figuring out what's going to happen. How it's going to. I don't know. I'm kind of hopeful. I think it'll be fine.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm sure it'll be
I
fine.
think
Yeah.
it'll be fine. As long
Of
as
course.
as long as everybody puts safety first.
Yeah. It's funny, before you have kids, it's so scary.
Yeah.
And then you have them, and you're like, why was I so freaked out about this?
I know. For a while, like, some things you think about before you have kids that you don't think about. Well, that's not what I mean. What I mean is, before I had kids, I never thought I was going to have kids because I couldn't see myself having the life that I wanted, like being a musician, playing my songs, touring
Yeah.
around, and also have a baby. But I did it and, was proven wrong that you can do whatever you want to do and also have a child. And it makes your perspective better, I think. Makes everything more important.
Sure.
Yeah.
I love talking to other musicians about being a parent. It's like my favorite thing.
I
could
really
just
love
go
it.
on
I don't
and
get
on
to
the
do it
whole
very
time.
often.
But let's go back a little bit to where you grew up. Where'd you grow up?
I was born in Mineral Wells, Texas, and then I also lived in Lubbock, Texas when my mom left my dad. So I have to claim both Mineral Wells, Texas and Lubbock, Texas.
Right.
Or on the voicemail, I'll get a terrible message from either one of them because they don't speak to each other.
Oh, no, your parents.
Yeah,
Oh, right.
from my parents.
I thought you meant the city itself.
Yeah, the city. Yeah, city.
Is growing up in Lubbock, like, do you have any sense of the Buddy Holly
actually have-
lineage there?
yeah.
Like, do people, is it like something that the whole town takes pride in?
Yes, it's also, not only that, but I went to the high school he went to, and
Oh, really?
all this stuff. And my
wow.
first ever gig, real gig, I got from Tommy Alsop, who was the
Really?
who played with Buddy Holly
Right.
and was the person that flipped the coin with,
Right.
donated his coin for the coin flip, or he did flip it.
Yeah, I think
He did flip it.
Waylon also gave
Yeah.
up his seat on that
Yeah,
flight.
yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were really close friends, him and Tommy. But yeah, Tommy was running the Texas Playboys band that I was playing with. It's a Western swing band.
Sure, yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I was going to get to that. But before we get to that, because I want to ask you about that, because that's fascinating to me. But what got you into music? Did you have a musical family?
No, I think what happened is I didn't have the language to even know what I was doing then, but it's kind of like, okay, here's what happened. My dad was at the pawn shop. I was with him. He was buying a new hunting knife or something, and there was a bunch of fiddles hanging up on the wall, and I was like, I want that. I really want that. And you know, he didn't have a lot of money. Neither of them did, but for some reason he had said, like, if you learn to play it, I'll buy it for you. It was $60. And
were you like, Dad, but I can't learn to play it when it's on the wall?
yeah, exactly. I was like, please, please, please let me play that. And so he got it for me. And then I busted all the strings off of it. You know, I was no prodigy. And at the end of summer, my mom got me lessons, and that's how I got into it. And I think the reason
But did you like, you know,
Oh,
bluegrass or something? Like what
I liked all
what drew
the
you
music.
to the violin, I guess I'm
not even sure. I think the way it looked, actually, just the way it looked, I thought it was something exotic, and I thought I could do that. Like, I could play that. That's awesome. It looks friendly, you know.
Right.
And
I'm always fascinated when I see people that started at a really young age
Mm-hmm.
and started with music that was, you know, way left field of what I would think would have been kind of all around them, like, you know, whatever pop music or alt rock or whatever was kind of happening.
Yeah.
Like, well, I always wonder, like, what drew you to that instead of New Kids on the Block or Nirvana or whatever, or maybe you were into all of the above. I don't know.
I listened to all that, and then I saw it, and I just wanted to do it, learn how it worked. I didn't have any like background in what a violin or a fiddle was at all.
Right.
And,
Did you have siblings?
Yep, I have a sister.
Oh, okay.
And she's a social worker.
Not a musician?
Nope. I think music on my dad's side of the family was not something that people did. Like, your job was supposed to be your job, like a hardworking,
Sure.
you know, manual labor or something. They worked in the oil fields and did greenhouses and like wholesale flowers and stuff. But yeah, I think the reason I stuck with it is because my mom and dad, they went through many relationships with other people and marriages and divorces, and it was the one thing that was sort of stable, like, that was always there, that I could always do that. And yeah, that's how I stayed with it, I think. Then I got interested in the fiddle music, and so that was a whole nother deal.
What were you listening to? Who were your sort of primary influences back then?
So to keep up and be like somewhat like not picked on at school, I had to keep track of all the hip hop and the pop and all that. But I was listening to like the Tiffany's transcriptions of the Western Swing, and then the Bob Wills band. Each member of the band always like put out side person records or like their own little projects. Like Frankie McWhorter of the Playboys recorded a bunch of fiddle tunes he learned from Eck Robertson, who was one of the earliest recorded fiddle players in Texas. And so I learned a lot from him. But so Texas, I listened to his records.
Which we should also mention has like just a wild musical history unto itself that is almost an insular tradition there, you know?
Yeah, I don't even know all of it. Only know,
that whole dance hall kind of circuit thing that still exists, I think.
It does, yeah.
I'm sorry, I cut you off. So
no,
you were
that's
talking
okay.
about listening to
Oh yeah, I
Tiffany
did all of that,
and
you know, everything I could really find. Like, I was listening to Speedy West, and then I was listening to the McKinney sisters, and just anything kind of Western and Western swinging, and lots of Conway Twitty and George Jones, and
right,
you know,
right.
Yeah.
And at what point did you start playing in bands? I mean, I know
When
you
I was
started
15,
was the Playboys? Was that your first band?
No, my first band was the Ranch Dance Fiddle Band, and the leader was Lanny Feel, who was a classical violist who I was also taking classical violin lessons from, and he met Frankie McWhorter of the Texas Playboys and started transcribing all the fiddle music he could find, and started working with the Playboys and stuff, and I got introduced to them through him. And
when you started playing with the Texas Playboys, were any of the old timers from like when Bob Wills would have been around? Were they still there?
Bobby Kofers was always on the steel guitar, and Jimmy, what's his last name? Jimmy was on the drums. Jimmy, I can't think of his last name.
And did you go on the road with them? I mean, were you touring and stuff at that age?
I was touring with the Ranch Dance Fiddle Band, and I would go and play shows with the Playboys. I wouldn't call it touring because at this point they were all in their 70s, and their shows were, you know, they'd have 2 nights in Ruidoso or 2 nights in Oklahoma, or do Christmas dances and, you know, cowboy symposiums. So
right.
Yeah.
I mean, what was that like to be around a bunch of seasoned
I got
vets, you know?
It was awesome. I got lots of desserts. I could get whatever I wanted for food. I tried whiskey. It was awesome.
Well, it's funny because, you know, of course, like a band like the Texas Playboys has an image that's, you know, kind of wholesome, really.
Yeah.
But we all know the reality of musicians, live and everything. So, you know, what was that like for your parents to be like, you know, all right, have fun with those, you know, I imagine you were picking up some influences that you would not have gotten, you know, around your friends.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they did teach me a lot about showmanship, and then they also were very strict about clothing, and they wouldn't really, you know, they were kind of awesome because, like, I'm not going to tell anyone's secrets that's still living, so it really doesn't matter, I don't guess. But, you know, I saw how guys could be on the road, but they would like be real sneaky. Like they would be leaving at 5 a.m., you know, sneaking back into their room.
Right.
And no, it was pretty awesome. But other than that, they were just like my granddads. They only like told jokes and like, you know, taught me music. Really, the other stuff they kind of kept
to themselves. Right.
Even not just from me, but from each other.
Sure.
You know,
I mean, that must have been a master class in fiddle.
It was, and at the time I didn't know, like I know now looking back, because I didn't have like the frontal lobe development to understand what it was that I was, you know, getting to be around. And
was it a twin fiddle situation? Like, were you playing with somebody else?
It was like 3 or 4.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they would let me play the third part, the lower register part, and sometimes I'd do the unison lead melody, but we were responsible for knowing all 3 harmony parts and whatever counterparts there were. So I think, you know, youth was on my side in that I had a good memory, so I could remember all that stuff. So if they said, you're going to play this tonight, these lines, and I would be able to do it. And I think that's why I was allowed to do it. And I always showed up with gear that worked. You know,
right?
And
that's
if
a good lesson for young musicians out there listening. Make sure your gear works.
I was just happy to play. You know, I didn't have any designs on being the front man or anything like that.
Right.
But I did sing for the first time with them, and Leon Rausch, I had to hold his hand because I was so scared.
Really?
Yeah.
So that was so up to that point you hadn't been a singer?
Nope, only fiddling.
Wow.
That's where I learned to improvise, was from them too.
And how did you go from that to being a solo artist? So what's in between the Texas Playboys and your first solo record?
In college I joined a band called the Thrift Store Cowboys, and it was like a sort of alternative country, desert western kind of mix between like kind of surfy music and, you know, West Texas-y, Calexico-ish.
That's kind of psychedelic desert.
Yeah, because you know, the desert. That's what West Texas is anyway.
It's interesting because I mean, I guess maybe that's what I was getting at. I hear that on your record. And I hear that influence.
Well, I like that. I mean, I don't know if that's a product of where a person's from, and, you know, being a lot closer to New Mexico and the desert and the West, or if it's something. No, you don't choose it. You can't choose it. It's just how it happens. So I did that band. It was a rock and roll band, you know, and we traveled around in a van and camped at the KOAs and other places. Lots of uncomfortable nights. And then it was, I think, I was playing for Billy Joe Shaver.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was a side person. I would play for anybody that I liked or that I liked their music.
I mean, I read that you over the years you've played with like John Prine and Todd Snyder and different people. I didn't read Billy Joe Shaver, but
He
who
was
else
the
of
person.
note was in there?
It's hard to remember. I'm not saying that to be like, but I'll sort of start remembering them in a minute. But
Billy Joe Shaver has that song that is like the saddest song I think I've ever
so
heard.
many. Which one? Star in My Heart?
No, what's it called? Live Forever?
Oh yeah, it's really
my
great.
God, I can't listen to that song without
dude,
tearing up. It's heavy.
And like most of Honky Tonk Heroes, he wrote.
Right.
Yeah.
I heard a great story that I have no idea if it's true or not about. He had met Waylon Jennings or something at a show.
That's
and
a story I heard.
You're right.
Yeah.
He followed him around for like a year or some
Yeah.
crazy thing, and
Or
then threatened to kick his ass. Like there's
like
some
shoved him
whole
up
thing.
against a wall
Yeah.
and all this kind of stuff. I'm actually playing a co-bill with him this Friday. But
Oh, really? Where?
St. Louis.
Oh, okay. So tomorrow? Well, what is
Oh
today?
yeah, tomorrow is Friday.
Yeah.
I played with him. Well, when I was like 22, I saw him playing at a festival, and his side person on guitar had a fiddle on their fiddle stand, and I had had a few drinks, and I got up there and grabbed the fiddle and played it with his band. Just,
Unannounced or uninvited?
oh yeah, It was just- most people would get like form tackled off the
Yeah.
stage, and I have pictures from it. Somebody sent me a bunch of pictures from that night, and after that, he invited me to play with him. I of course said, "Yeah, that's awesome," and
Right.
I was just, I didn't. Thinking back on it, I would never do that to somebody. I would just never do that.
Right.
What was I thinking? Such a moron.
He seized the moment.
Yeah, I was just so young and drunk. Because where else would you get that kind of balls?
It's tough. Fiddle's a tough instrument to play drunk. I mean, I don't play fiddle myself, but I've seen other people who are really talented play it when they're drunk,
It's
and it's you
terrible.
ain't got no frets.
No,
and
it's
yeah,
all
it's tough.
sorts of bad.
Yeah.
And we were on this trip in his car. He liked to ride separately in his car, and he likes to go really fast. He has two like of those things that.
The cop
Yeah,
sensor,
he has two of them. One there and like one there.
just in case the first one fails.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
It's terrifying. He'll go where the barrels tell you not to go, and real outlaw shit. And one of the long rides, he was like, "I want to hear your record," and I was like, "Well, it's all fiddle music, really, except for this one song I wrote." And
Wait, so at that point you had already made what, your first record?
This is where people say that it was my first record, but it's not, because I was doing what the other side people in the Texas Playboys and other people did, where they just made recordings of themselves playing like traditional music,
Right.
instrumental stuff.
Right.
So it was just a recording. There were recordings of me playing like fiddle music, traditional fiddle music.
Where are those available now? Can you get those? Are those in your Spotify?
They're probably.
thing?
I hope they're not, because what I don't want. I mean, it's good and it's great, but it's like it's really boring to people that don't just
Right.
love the fiddle.
Right.
And
Maybe you should re-release those under an alternate name.
yeah,
Tex Shires.
yeah, just put it. Yeah. But it was just a thing. It was a record that I had that showed me play. It was sort of a business card in a sense.
Right.
Like it showed me playing the fiddle. It showed me singing a little bit. Because
Right.
then after that time with the Playboys, I started doing a little harmony and singing
Right.
a little bit more, so I could be more useful as a side player. And so I had that, and I kept it because Billy Joe let me sell it to make extra money on the table, which was very generous of him.
Yeah.
But it's not an
Like
uncommon
a lot
thing.
of people wouldn't have done let that happen.
I think that he's from the era of all that old stuff where that was fine. Like
Right.
a lot of side people did that.
Right.
And I'm glad they let him, because without that I wouldn't have a lot of records that I have. Because you can't get a lot of what I have on any like iTunes or anything like that.
It's always strange when you think back to your record collection. For me, like stuff I had in the '80s or whatever. And there's just a handful of things that don't exist digitally at all.
Exactly.
Like nobody's taken the time to put them up on YouTube.
Yeah.
They're just gone.
They're gone.
Yeah.
Except for
In this world where you can have any song that's ever been recorded at your
Yeah.
fingertips in like 3 strokes,
Yeah.
there are a few things out there that have slipped through the cracks. You know?
Exactly. Exactly. Well, those are the ones that I keep.
Right.
The rest of them, they're long gone because
Yeah.
you can get everything else digitally.
So so you're in the car and he wants to listen to your record. And
Yeah, and he likes the fiddle.
Right.
I love people that like the fiddle, violin, whatever. But then I would skip the song where I would sing and showcase my singing, because why on earth should he have to hear that? He's Billy
Right.
Joe Shaver, he's a badass. And he's like, why are you skipping it? I want to hear it. And he listened and and I was like, crap, he hates this the whole time. And when it got done, he just turned it off and he was like, you know what you need to do? You need to be a songwriter. And I was like, oh God, this is just a nice way of him saying you're fired,
Yeah, this is the nicest way I've ever been fired.
Exactly. And he was like, I really mean it. You have something. You should be a songwriter. And I still at that point was like, what is he talking about? I have no idea what that means, I just written a little bit just to, then 2 years later, inception to 2 years later, I moved to Nashville. And, I'd already had a stable income from being a side person, and I couldn't be an artist in Texas because people would say, I know you play the fiddle in different bands and all this kind of stuff, and I couldn't get any artists really any opening gigs or gigs. I don't know. And so I just was like, yeah, I'm gonna move to Nashville like Billy Joe Shaver told me to do that time. And then I moved here and then waited tables and started recording what I call my first record.
Right.
That isn't a instrumental showcase of fiddle tunes.
Right.
Thank you kindly not to include that.
I know what's going to be the bumper music on this episode.
Oh, good. Deedle-deedle-dee, deedle-dee. So then I recorded and then just started, booking myself and playing shows, and did it again, and then didn't have to wait tables anymore. Kept doing it.
And is that the point in your life? How many records in were you at that point? Or are you saying that, I think you just said that was your first...
My first one...
solo album that you count as your record?
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
thing.
West Cross Timbers.
So was that the point in your life that you felt professional, or maybe not professional, but for lack of a better word, I am an artist. This is my life. I am now an artist full time.
Well, I was still waiting tables. I felt like I could be an artist because in that recording of that record, and I was still very unsure as to am I any good at this really?
Right.
Or people.
When did you start to get some acclaim or some response or some felt like things were kind of
carrying the
traction.
Next one after that,
Right.
Carrying Lightning, I think that's when I started getting some kind of notice, and but before then it was all I wanted to do. Even if with that record, if nothing good came up from it, if I couldn't get any gigs, that's what I wanted to do. So just hoped and stick-to-itiveness.
And how have you grounded out over the years? I mean, how did you get a record deal and get on the road and turn it into that?
Well, I put the first one's a first release, the West Cross Timbers self-release, Carrying Lightning's a self-release. In 2013, I released Down Fell the Doves with a licensing deal with Lightning Rod Records, and this newest one's a self-release also.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
And Jason self-releases his last couple records. He self-released the last two.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting, because I imagine the two of you are at a point where you could pretty much write your own ticket with, one of the big boys. Why do you choose to do it this way?
Because of 360 deals.
Right.
Because it's just very unfair and impossible,
right.
If there's a person taking a percentage of every side of the business and you are only playing to this big of an audience, that's not enough money for you to live or, go to a doctor or anything
right.
like that. So I think that and also wanting to be in control of your own content, really.
Right.
Not being told, you need this kind of a song, you know.
Right.
Nobody thought that there was a single on Southeastern.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think just the nature of the business, and luckily we have all these formats now that it makes it possible.
Right. I mean, have you ever like had any experience in the sort of mainstream country music Nashville world? Do you ever like co-write with those folks? Have any sort of crossover? Were you ever sideman or to any of those people?
When I moved to town, I was thinking, I'm not playing for anybody unless I can learn something from them. Like, it has to be somebody that's a great writer, or something that I feel like would be less, something that I would get something out of, rather than just being a person that gets told what to do all day.
Right.
So when I moved to town, I did a little bit of co-writing, and I've done a little bit. I don't mind co-writing. I kind of like it if it's with the right people. And I played with like Justin Townes Earl and
cool.
Yeah, Todd Snyder.
Yeah.
He was the first person ever to let me open.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he let me open for him, but it was in Texas. I have the poster still. I think it's 2008. But he didn't show up. So they had to
turn into a headliner.
Exactly. And then
I got to interview him. I don't know him personally. I've never met him, but I like his music, and I heard him interviewed on that Otis Gibbs podcast. And I think that Todd Snyder was on acid maybe during the interview, and it was like the best interview of all time.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, acid or mushrooms or something.
Right.
I love him. He's like all artist. I
like
business.
that new record. What's the band called?
Hardworking Americans.
Yes.
Yeah, really great.
Yeah, that's a good, especially that opening track on that record is fantastic.
They're so good.
So what's next for you? So your album's about to come out in a month or so, and then you're gonna hit the road. You said you're doing like 50 dates. Is it just like how much do you tour? Are you hitting it? You just go until you don't feel like going anymore, kind of thing?
As much as it takes. I like being on the road. I'd like it a lot better if I could eventually get out of the van and into a bus situation. But it's the only thing I'm really all that good at. I was a shitty waitress. I was, and I can't draw or paint, and everything looks like a sausage by the time I'm done.
Right.
I don't know. It's the only thing I know how to do. So if I'm not, I have to keep myself busy. So I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna tour. Right now there's not really an end in sight, and there doesn't need to be. I don't guess.
Well, on that end, would you like to play a song?
Sure. Why not?
That'd be great.
Oh, cool.
Ooh, that's fucking hip. That is hip. Look at that. Nice. Do you mind if I snap a couple while you're doing your thing?
No.
I'll try not to get
Put the flash. Go ahead and be obtrusive. Let's see what happens. A phased golden light rained down from the streetlight. It fell across your shoulder, paused just above your collar, like it had something to show me, as if I wasn't already noticing. Your eyes a shade of wonder, like if thunder had a color. It could have been harmless, wanting to see if I could get a little closer and walk away breathing. It might have been cheating, where exactly is the line? Too early to admit it, I wanted you for mine. I kissed Maria in the alley. You laughed and spilled your whiskey. There's some I can't remember. A talented bartender way out in the cheap seats. The stars stared unblinking. The ones that know anything won't be revealing. It could have been harmless, wanting to see if I could get a little closer and walk away breathing. It might have been cheating. Where exactly is the lie? Too early to admit it. I wanted you for mine. There was a sword in my drink. Everything's a sign if you want it to be, and you want it to be. It could have been harmless, wanting to see if I could get a little closer and walk away breathing. It might have been cheating. Where exactly is the lie? Too early to admit it. I wanted you for mine. It could have been harmless. It could have been harmless.
Yeah, it looks that big.
It's not my first instrument, but
That was absolutely fantastic.
there we go. We did it.
Thank you for doing this today.
Thank
Much
you.
appreciated.
Thank you more.
Have fun on the road. Yeah, that was Amanda Shires doing an awesome acoustic version of her song Harmless, which you can go listen to the full version, the full recorded version of that on her latest record, My Piece of Land. And while you're doing that, make sure you get on over to AmandaShiresMusic.com to find out what she's doing. I think she's probably out on the road right now. You can check her out on Twitter at Amanda Shires. Yeah, she's on tour in the U.S. right now. So go catch a show, listen to her record, and when you're done with that, make sure you go to the iTunes store and listen to all the old Walking the Floor episodes with people like Mike Ness and Brad Paisley and Sturgill Simpson, and you know, there's a million of them, and they're all up there and they're all free. Make sure you subscribe, and we will see you later, suckers. This is Walking the Floor with Chris Shiflett. Adios, amigos!